All right, now we're on to the second type of mixture problems. So let's just read it and let's see if we can figure out how it's different. So we've got a person who's investing $2,000, part at 8% per annum, and the rest at 10% per annum. After 1 year, the total interest earned was $190. How much was invested at each rate? Now, with every word problem, this last sentence is telling us what our two variables are going to be. So we have a person investing money. So they're investing how much? They're investing $2,000. So they've got this $2,000. They're going to invest part at 8%, and they're going to invest the rest at 10%. Now, what is this 8% and this 10%? Well, this is your interest. So let's look at this part first. So we've got $2,000 that we're investing. So part at 8% and part at 10%. How much are you investing at 8%? Well, you're going to invest X amount. How much at 10%? Let's say Y. So we've got X amount invested at 8% and Y amount being invested at 10%. Now we know all together your total investment is going to be $2,000. Right away, hopefully you're noticing one of the biggest difference here is that I had something to write here. I had that 8% and that 10%, which we have always had for our mixture, but we didn't have a percentage of our final percent, right, of our total. So for this one, this is just total invested, or whatever it's going to be for that one. So this one, it's total amount. So the total amount invested was $2,000, part at 8% and part at 10%. So then how are we going to get the next line? Well, we know for rate, we always put our percent as a decimal. So we're going to be 0.08 and we're going to put 0.10 or just 0.1. But we don't have anything to put here. So we can't do the rate times this amount to give us a part in this line here. So let's talk about what this line is going to represent. When I take 8% of the amount invested at 8%, that's going to give me my total interest that I've earned. So on the $2,000, I have some of it at 8% interest. So let's say X amount. If I take X times 0.08, that's going to tell me how much interest that I've earned on that. And then if I do 10% of Y, that's going to tell me how much interest that I've gained on that amount of my investment. So this is my investment, and this is my interest. So this is the amount of my investment. And then 8% of X is going to be the amount of interest that I earn. So interest. And then 0.1 times Y is going to be the amount of interest I earned on the amount invested, Y. But guess what they also told me? Instead of giving me the percentage of the total that's going to be interest, they tell me how much interest I earn. So I can simply put 190 in here and I don't have to fill out that box. So that my two equations are talking about my amount invested, so X amount at 8% and Y amount at 10% to equal $2,000 invested. And then this last line is how much interest those investments are going to earn. So 8% of X, 10% of Y is going to give me $190. So the biggest difference here is that this second type of mixture problem, you're not going to put anything in for the rate, and they're just going to give you the total of your interest. And these ones will all be interest questions. There won't be anything different. So if you see a question involving interest, this is how they get set up. So that my two equations are X plus Y equals 2,000 and 0.08X plus 0.1Y is equal to 190, right? So I didn't have to take my total amount and times it by a rate because I didn't know the rate. I just knew how much interest I was going to earn. So now to solve this, your choice, I'm going to solve this one by elimination because I've done a lot of substitution. So I'm going to take this bottom equation and I'm going to times it by 10 so that I can end up with 1y. And then I'm going to multiply, actually, if I multiply by 10, I'll get 1y. So let's multiply it by negative 10. So I'm going to get x plus y equals 2,000. And if I multiply this guy by negative 10, I get negative 0.8x minus 1y is equal to negative 1,900. So I just took each of these numbers and I multiplied it by negative 10. Then I'm going to add these two equations together. 1 minus 0.8 is 0.2x, and then 2,000 plus negative 1,900 is 100. So to get x by itself, I'm going to divide both sides by 0.2. And I end up with x equals 100 divided by 0.2, 500. And again, you could have used substitution or any other type of elimination for that. Now, did they want to know how much was invested at each rate? Yep. So now I know the amount invested at 8%. So to find the amount invested at 10%, I'm going to take this 500 and I'm going to plug it back into either of these two equations for x. I'm going to plug it into that top one because it looks easier. So I'm going to say that x plus y equals 2,000. And then in for x, I'm going to put 500. And then I'm going to subtract 500 from each side. And I get y equals 1,500. So therefore, amount invested, I can't even read that. Amount, I should just type it. Amount invested at 8% is $500. And at 10% is $1,500. And then of course I would always check, do those two numbers add up to 2,000? And then if I take 8% of 500 and 10% of 1,500, does that add up to $190? And it does. So that's the second type of mixture problem that you're going to encounter. Have fun.